filled out. But so we got two samples here. This one here was taken from the Carvajal pasture, and this one was taken here from the buffalo recharge area. This one has been heavily grazed for a long time. This one hasn't been grazed enough. It's been rested for too long. But it's my opinion that these soils are still healthier soils than these ones. They got more cover, they got more roots. And what we're going to demonstrate here is what happens in a rainfall event. How much rain you get to infiltrate into the soil and how much runs off and ends up in the creeks and the gullies and eventually in the Rio Grande out here. So we're going to pour these same amount of water on both deals here, simulate rainfall, and see what happens. So you're getting runoff on this one. We don't got any runoff on this one. It's just kind of ponding over here. But you can see down here it's infiltrating all the way into the bottom. And so we'll add another round of water to both of them. Same amount of water again. Let's see what happens. You can see you're getting a lot of runoff on this one. This one you're getting more infiltration, a lot less runoff. And that's what happens in a rainfall event out here, or when the snows melt in the spring. We want these springs to recharge, but we're not getting the infiltration in the ground. And we never will until we manage the land in a way that those roots can get deep into the soil. And grazing management's the way to do it. You don't have to pull the bison off forever, but just give it a rest. Pick up all these fences, split it up into the, I think, what is there, 5 paddocks out here? Get on a rotation and you'll start to see a big difference. You'll see a big difference in your springs starting to recharge. Do it one more time. This is happening everywhere. It's happening all over the country. It's happening on those sagebrush out here. Used to be full of vegetation. Now we got a bunch of sagebrush in there and no grasses to break up compaction. So let's take both of these apart and see what's really going on below. You can see that water still ponded in there. Okay. Take a look in here. Look at all the erosion you got. All the trash that came out, soil, litter. This one's clean. Very little.
It filtered itself.
It filtered itself. Full of runoff. Very little runoff, and the runoff that you're getting is clean water. And okay, let's start with this guy here. Too tight. Can't even pull it apart. Try it. Look at all those roots in there. That's what's breaking up the compaction on this thing. This stuff has a little bit of roots, but they're really fine roots.
Right.
This one has a diversity of roots. It's got the fine roots, thick roots. It's got a lot more activity inside.
This one's sure black though.
It is real black.
And does that make a difference, like the soil are different from there and here?
It does. It does. They're a little bit different soils. They're both a wet meadow ecological site. They're not that different. This stuff, those soils have a lot more.
A lot of manure
smell different,
squished in there.
Sometimes they get so tight that they don't even get any oxygen in there, and you start to get kind of an anaerobic situation going on in there. And kind of like when you dig out a pond and you pull out all that black mud, real dark, no oxygen in there. That might be part of the reason why those soils are so much darker than these ones. Look at that, you got big, thick roots. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. That's really what makes a difference on a piece of ground, the amount of roots, the amount of life, the amount of diversity going on. If you got a field with just one type of grass, it'll do all right. But you put a mix of 3 or 4, some warm season grasses, some cool season grasses, now you got green grass all year. And you got activity in your soils all year. And you got these earthworms working for you and stuff, making channels, things like that. And when you get the rain and when you get the runoff from the winter snow, it makes a difference. And so we scratch our head and we wonder why the heck the springs quit flowing. This is it right here. Look at the difference. 3 times. 3 times as much runoff from here to here. So we're in a state where we're always dry anyway, right? We're lucky if we get 14 inches of rain. If you only get 1/3 of those rains infiltrating into your soil, even on a good year when you get all 14 inches, if only 1/3 of that gets into your soil, you're still in a drought. Only it's a drought that we created. It's not one that Mother Nature created. And so, even on the good years, you're in a drought when your land's in bad shape. So we got 2 samples here again of soil and vegetation on it. And we're gonna simulate rainfall and see what happens. This one was taken right outside the fence here. Doesn't get grazed much, has a lot of cover, a lot of vegetation on it. This one gets grazed pretty hard. Has been grazed pretty hard for a long time. It's got a lot of cover on it. Both of them have a lot of smooth brome going on in here. This one has a sedge, not a sedge, but a rush going on in here, also known as wiregrass around here. But we're gonna pour some same amount of water on both of them, simulate rainfall, and see what happens here. You can see you're getting a lot of runoff, the sample on the left, and that's the one that gets grazed pretty hard. And the one on the right, you can see that water's going all the way through. It's dripping here on the bottom. We're getting the infiltration on there. We're gonna give it another round, see what happens. You see we got a lot of runoff over here. Let's give it round 3. All 3 of them have gotten the same amount of water. Getting quite a bit of runoff in here. Very little runoff in here. Most of it's infiltrating into the soil. And the little bit of runoff we are getting here is coming out pretty clean. And that's from all the vegetation in there and all the soil aggregates that are holding the soils together. Over here on this side, we're getting a lot of trash, a lot of erosion. You can see in there. This is what happens in a rainfall event when you have a heavily grazed piece of land. You get the rains and they don't really get into the soil. They run off. They end up into the gullies, the arroyos, eventually in the river. And we don't get the recharge on our springs, on our wells. We scratch our head all the time and we wonder why our wells, why the water table's getting lower all the time. And this has a lot to do with what's going on. Take a look at how far that water got into the soil. Really didn't, hardly at all. On that side, this side, we got some. There is still some compaction on this one, but we have a lot more roots in here. A lot of thick roots. See that? That's what's breaking up your compaction on your soils. Whereas this one, man, can't even. We've got some really fine roots going on in there. They're very fine. They're not thick enough to really make a difference. Pretty tight soils.
So if you overgraze it, it's not allowing the plant to grow and then to create those roots.
Exactly. It's not letting those roots get down deep in there. Wide roots, healthy roots. Healthy roots make all the difference in the world. Look how hard that thing is. We got some roots in there, but they're pretty tight, pretty fine.